You got to be honest, you got to have integrity, and you got to have hard work.
Hi, it's Steph, and that was the voice of Robert Moehling. I think Robert must have one of the most unique business origin stories around. Robert is Here is a family-owned and operated fruit stand in Homestead, Florida. They specialize in rare and exotic fruits and vegetables. People travel great distances to browse and to buy papaya, mango, guanabana, mamey, and more in a vibrant open-air space to taste their fruity milkshakes and to soak up some of the fresh Florida atmosphere. As you'll hear, Robert's story is just one more reminder that we never know what someone is going through or has gone through, and to always be kind. Robert's resilience is infectious, as is his love for fruits and vegetables and for his customers. We recorded this in early October 2020, and during that time, the whole operation at Robert is Here was modified into a drive-through due to the pandemic. But in early November 2020, they opened up their doors and the space again in a COVID-safe way. As I said, when we did this interview, they were still in drive-through mode with an eye on reopening. Before we get to this conversation about fruits and business tips and vegetable insights and overcoming tragedy, I have a quick word for you. First, thank you to all of you for listening to Another Door Opens on places like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, and for your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. And to you supporters of mine on Patreon, thank you for believing in this podcast and choosing to back it with your dollars. You're helping to offset the costs of making the podcast, and I am grateful to you. All right, slice into an apple or peel a banana, and let's bite into this conversation. This is the Another Door Opens podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie Himango. Here is Robert Moehling. And what is the name of your business?
Robert is Here.
And what is Robert is Here to the uninitiated?
Robert is Here is basically, it's an accident. It's a fruit market, education place for tropical fruit and regular fruit and vegetables. We try to educate everybody that comes in, because when you come in, you're going to see, guaranteed, when we're open normally, you'll see something you've never seen before with fruit or vegetables or some sort of something that grows. And that's basically what we are. It was driven by how we got started.
I wanted to find out just how he got started because I had heard an urban legend that when Robert was a boy of just 6 years old, he started selling cucumbers by an old country road. As it turns out, Robert told me his grandfather and father before him had been farmers, and since money was very tight, one day his dad decided to have Robert sit by the road to try to sell off the remainder of the cucumbers they'd grown.
He put me, a 6-year-old kid, on this godforsaken corner, which he farmed, and I sat there all day long with all these cucumbers that he gave me, and nobody stopped. When my dad come to pick me up, and we got home, Mom, I guess, told Dad that maybe no one saw that little kid out there. That's why he had no one stop. So little did I know it was going to happen another day, but the next day, Dad put 2 signs on either side of me in cursive writing on we had hurricane shutters that went on the house, and the signs simply told people that I was here. Robert is here.
The signs in cursive both just read the words, Robert is here?
Robert is here. That's it.
Okay.
My dad left me there. I had the 2 signs up this time, and people started stopping, and I sold all the cucumbers.
Do you have any recollection of what you felt? Like, was there a thrill, or do you only have memories of what they told you about that day? Because you were so young.
It's pretty much, I got in trouble for walking home after I sold out.
Thank you for nothing.
And I caught the wrath. I remember not having fun when I walked home. But I don't remember how much I sold the cucumbers for. I know we were just keeping our head above water financially. And when I had Christmas break, they put me out there every day, not just on weekends. And then I was babysitting my sister, and we both sat out there and sold cucumbers. By this time, on the Christmas break, we had all kinds of vegetables. We had farmers that brought stuff over, and we'd sell out everything. Whatever I brought out there, I'd sell.
I was was wondering if Robert felt like a born merchant, if something in what he was doing felt extra natural to him. His answer might seem to veer, but really it doesn't. It's right on point.
I don't know if I was born. I think I was hatched a child, and I grew up. We have a funny incident happening at the fruit stand here since this pandemic. Someone dropped off a cat while we were closed the first couple of weeks of this pandemic, and it was just a baby cat, and it lived with the chickens. So to this day, she still hangs around the chickens and thinks it's a chicken.
Oh.
And I think I was a kid that thought I was an adult because I hung around adults almost constantly since I was 6 years old. And I never really fit in with kids at school. So I wasn't the best student in the world. But I couldn't fathom doing the C-spot run stuff, you know. I said, I'm already negotiating with people, you know, and developed the knowledge that if I just smile, I got you. If I smile at you, you know, as a 6-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid, depending how long I had been in business already, that most adults cannot turn a little kid down when he's introducing a product to you or selling you a product or talking to you more like an adult. But if I smile at you, you're done. You got to buy or do whatever I say. I knew this from a little kid. And to this day, I have meet people that tell me, you're always smiling. I have learned that that's my best attribute to get into your heart. And if I get into a customer's heart, I'm into his wallet. I can sell him anything. I have to have stuff that's worthy. We sell stuff that's different. And if I like it, I know everybody else is going to like it.
I visited Robert is here sometime around 2008 or 2009. So imagine this. You drive south out of Miami heading toward the Florida Keys. You turn off for the Redlands, and far off in the distance, you see a low-standing structure and people gathering. When it comes into focus, you can read the sign proudly letting you know Robert is here. I'll post pictures online, so make sure you check them out. The parking lot is alternately filled with cars or motorcycles. Huge fans roar inside to cut the Florida heat. And there is a beautiful palette of colorful fruits and vegetables and wonderful smells and life and fresh fruit milkshakes being blended.
I have learned that if you have a big mountain of something, it will sell. If it looks like it's being picked over, it won't sell as much. If I have, say, avocados, and I'll put 10 or 15 or 20 boxes of avocados loose on a table. Just put mountain as high as I could fill it. And if we're selling down to not so much, I don't have so much left, I'll either work them onto a smaller table so that table looks full and put something else on the big table. So you walk in, you see papayas, 30, 40 boxes on a table and 20 or 30 boxes of avocados on another table. And then all of a sudden you see a huge mango table. And then tomatoes, I put up a huge display. And everything's got to be worked every day, but hopefully I'll sell enough so I don't have to work that many of them. Then you'll look around and you'll see jackfruit, fruit that weighs up to 100 pounds each, 30, 40, 60 pounds. And then you'll see guanabana, which is the most magnificent piece of fruit. It got 300-400 pounds, 500 pounds of guanabana. Or mamey, we'll have 1,100 pounds sitting out there. And it brings a question to your mind. What is this?
It's so fascinating to me that you have figured out that when a table looks bountiful or a room looks bountiful, your customer is more inclined to gravitate toward that and want to buy it. What is the psychology in that, do you think, that if there's many?
Well, it's just, if you go to a car dealer and he's got 25 different cars to choose from, and then you go to the next car dealer and he's got 450 cars, it's just you have more choices, you know, even of the same car, you got more choices. And when you pull up and there's hundreds and hundreds of cars packed around my business, and then you walk in, there's fruit everywhere, just stuff you've never seen, stuff you've seen, but you've never seen it so big.
If you could describe the nature of your interactions with your customers over the years, I think you're about so much more than fruit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've been doing a drive-through since the March the pandemic hit. And on Saturdays and Sundays when we're really, really busy, I have such a strong obligation in my soul to thank all my customers. My wife and myself sit a quarter mile from the fruit stand at a turnaround where I turn the cars into my property and line them up in a 3-lane aisle, 3 lanes going to 3 different checkout counters. I had 63 employees when the pandemic hit, and most of them didn't want to work with the public. So I couldn't keep my store open. So I turned it into a drive-through. And when I saw what happened that first weekend, people would line up for hour and a half to sit in my line to come in and buy whatever I had to offer, just a milkshake or whatever, and there's no way that anybody's time would be that unvaluable that they would go stand in line for no reason at all. And my customers, even to this day, everybody says, whatever it takes, we're here to support you. So that's why I'm out here to tell you guys, thank you so very much. I've always appreciated every customer. I went through a lot of different stuff in my life, and here they're putting themselves through a line to get a milkshake or a mango or a papaya. When I'm in my store, I'm doing the same thing with you, only on a personal basis. And I try to instill that in all our employees and try to instill it in my kids. They made the effort to come in, to come see us, and they're patronizing us, and they're buying from us, they're experiencing us, and we have to put our best out there.
And what do you feel like you're giving them? I feel like when we talked before, you were talking about family, you were talking about love, humanity, kindness. What do you feel like you provide in addition to the goods you provide and the experience you provide?
It's experience, it's an education. It's what humans want to have from other humans, to interact and really enjoy your few minutes that you spend on Earth in such a strange manner. It's an experience.
You talked about weathering storms, and anyone who lives in South Florida knows about that in the literal sense, in the actual sense. But you could not have remained in business from age 6 till now, from 1959 to 2020, without resilience and maybe some other qualities. I want to ask you, can you describe a couple of the more significant storms you've weathered and what you think helped you through?
Well, I know exactly what helped me through. My dad, I lost him a little bit young for a lot of people. I was in my 20s, but, and he passed away from leukemia. But then I met my wife and we started having kids, and I was raised before I met my wife by my mom. She was the main parent in my family. She was the toughest individual, toughest person I have ever met.
Robert says he and his mom were close throughout his life and through a lot of tough stuff. From the time Robert was a small guy selling cucumbers on the roadside, all the way until the year 1992, when unimaginable things happened all at once, and everything in his life would change.
Hurricane Andrew we didn't even know Hurricane Andrew was out there. But I went home one day to put a little sticker that you buy for your license plate on my mom's car. And I went into her house and I find my mom murdered on the floor. God, it was just when I found my mom, I hear someone screaming, and I look around and the only one in the room was me and my mother laying dead on the floor. It was just such a weird phenomena. So we get through that stage of our week after she was murdered, and some of the friends came over and said, "What are you going to do for this hurricane that's coming?" And I said, "What hurricane? We haven't been paying attention. We don't know who murdered her. We haven't figured this out. And we're just spinning like a big top, spinning as fast as it can go." And Hurricane Andrew hit the next day, and it absolutely destroyed everything. All my little farms that I had built, my house, my barns, everything, all the groves, avocados and mangoes and papayas and all the weird tropical fruits that I was growing. And we lived through that. It took 15 years. So we register hurricanes now, how long it takes to get back into shape. Andrew was a 15-year hurricane. And I swear to God, it took about 15 years.
Most people can't relate on any level to what you just said. And it's so profound and so shocking. I don't really even know how to respond to it. How did you make it through that? You had two major storms at the same time, personal and professional.
Yeah, well, the one with my mom and Hurricane Andrew, 100% was my wife. You know, either her being that strong for me or reminding me how strong my mom was. And everybody has to lean on something when something happens. I don't care who you are. That's what got me through. And, you know, my 4 little kids, you got to be there for them.
Was your mom's murder ever solved?
Not in the sense that the authorities found anybody or did anything. The good Lord will take care of that.
There is no easy way to transition from such a heartbreaking and horrific story. So I'll just say Robert and I returned to the topic of his business, which has sustained him and his family throughout his entire life. How many people can say that they've been in the same business on the same spot for more than 60 years? And you guys, keep listening for a glimpse of Robert's bright attitude toward life and its revolving, ever-changing, ever-open doors. What is your advice to somebody who is starting a new business? What 1, 2, or 3 things should they keep front of mind?
Just from my life experiences, there's 3 things in a business. And then there's a 4th thing that not everybody can do, but if you can make it happen, you have to make it happen. You got to be honest, you got to have integrity, and you got to have hard work. I don't care what business, I don't care if it's a marriage, I don't care if it's a friendship. You throw them things out there, and you have pitfalls, but it will work. And then there's the 4th thing you got to have. You got to own your store. Own your land, own your market. You physically have to own what you're building. If you have a barbershop, you got to own the building the barbershop's in. You got to own the restaurant's in. You got to own the building, no matter what it is. Because as soon as you make it, the landlord will find someone else that'll pay him more money, and you'll be out of business. I didn't own my place. I had 1-year leases. I think we did like 40 years, 1 year at a time.
Wow.
And it was very, very nerve-wracking over 30 years that every year, oh boy, I hope he rents it back to us. Then my mom was murdered, and then it was up to me to pay the rent every year. And that was when did Hurricane Andrew hit?
92?
In 92, I started having to pay the rent personally. My mom always took care of that.
So somewhere in the 8 to 10 years that followed, Robert would drive up to Miami to hand deliver the rent check and repeatedly ask if he could buy the property. Until finally, the landlord agreed to sell it. I then asked Robert the question he gets way too often and is probably low-hanging fruit. But I asked, what is your favorite fruit?
Oh, God. Everybody asks me that.
Do you hate that question?
I love the question, but there's so much. If you've seen me, you know I'm a big guy. You know I've lost a little weight. I absolutely think the best fruit in the whole world is a guanabana.
Why?
Sour sop. It's got something to the tree. When you wrinkle the leaves have an aroma. The fruit is just unbelievable. It is so good. It's just magnificent. It has a property to the guanabana that kills cancer cells in humans.
He is not alone in saying this, but of course, do your own homework, you know? Okay.
But my most favorite fruit to eat is a mango.
I'm not the most skilled person in the kitchen, so you might be way ahead of me, but did you know the following?
You never put tomatoes in the refrigerator. You try to harvest your fruit when it is mature. And if you're growing or trying to store Florida avocados, you have to pick them mature, and you don't ever refrigerate an avocado, the Florida ones, until it starts getting ripe a little bit. And then you got 3 or 4 days after that in the refrigerator. A Hass avocado is okay to refrigerate. You harvest it hard and green color, and you can refrigerate it in a cooler, and it could possibly be a year old before you have to eat it.
Oh my gosh.
And if you ever cut up a Hass avocado that's ripe, but it's black inside, it's been in the cooler too long. And when you get our Florida avocados and try to keep them in the cooler, either after it's ripened a little bit and start to get ripe, and then you put it in for 3 days, and you let it go 7 days or 8 days or 9 days, it'll be black inside.
I've seen them turn color like that. Are they still safe to eat that way or not?
What's that now? On the outside or the inside?
Inside.
The inside has to be green. It don't hurt you. It just won't be good.
Okay.
The Hass avocado, it has a different oil content. It's real oily. And it just stays. And that's why you have Hass avocados all year long, because they can store them. They can have immature avocados on a tree with mature ones hanging right next to it. So they can almost pick them year round off the same tree. Our avocados has a season that runs about 8-9 months. And it's just a constant overlap of different varieties and extended about 10 to 12 months.
I can't wait to come visit. So the question I like to ask everyone is, what do the words "another door opens" mean to you or symbolize to you?
You know, I went through life with all the doors open. I didn't have much education, and I loved to take challenges and do stuff. When I was in high school, I raced cars. I've challenged myself with being able to buy and sell stuff. When they open and you don't take it, and you keep on not taking that door opening, that might be a big minus in your life. I have the idea. I see all the doors open and I want to go in all of them. I want to travel in all the doors. I've never had too many doors close on me. I don't let them close. I know this pandemic thing has sometimes got me really down. But I think since the last time when we first chatted, we started working on our market. And that feels like another door is open where I'm going to be opening again soon. I know the world is going crazy with so many people catching COVID now, even more than before. But I still have great hope and ambition. And my changing the market has done that for me.
So what's your advice to other people who might feel right now that doors are closing on them? Is it a matter of perspective, attitude? What is it?
Yeah, think of no doors is closed on you. Think of all the doors are opening up around you.
As Robert said, think of no doors as closed on you. That's an interesting perspective that I'm definitely going to be thinking on. Robert Moehling, thank you again for being my guest today, for sharing your story. And again, congratulations on the great news that Robert is Here is fully open again and being operated with COVID safety measures in place. If you're not in South Florida, you can glimpse pictures online of the amazing space on their website at robertishere.com, and also follow them on Instagram at Robert is Here Fruit Stand and Farm. Thanks again to all of you who are listening to and sharing the podcast, and to my Patreon supporters who also help keep this podcast going with financial backing. For even $1 a month, you can also help support the making of the podcast and put your dollars towards spreading goodness in the world. Visit patreon.com/anotherDoorOpens to learn more. Thank you too to Eric Brown for creating the fun beats that are the soundtrack here each week. Okay, before I go, just a reminder to stop by Apple Podcasts and leave a review and rating, and eat your vegetables. That's the Another Door Opens podcast for this week. I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.